January 24th is the day of our Hall of Fame coverage here. Keith Costas has been profiling members of the ballot all month long. And, Keith, we've landed on Mark Buehrle. Fascinating case. I'm pretty sure how White Sox fans feel about Mark Buehrle as a Hall of Famer, and he has so many great individual moments. But why don't you walk us through his candidacy?
Yep, third year on the ballot, guys. He debuted around 11%, actually fell back last year to around 5%, and we'll look at where he's tracking right now, courtesy of Ryan Thibodeau. He's at 8.5%, sorry, excuse me, 9.9% you see on the bottom there. So still floating quite a bit of ways away from that 75% threshold, but we'll give you the case for Buehrle. Obviously, it starts with his durability. We all know about him churning out those 200-inning seasons, and it's pretty good company just in terms of getting to that number. Only Clemens is out of the Hall of Fame other than Buehrle among that group that you see in the modern era there in terms of 14 seasons with 200 plus. How about doing it consecutively? Even more impressive. That's the group right there. And guys, just for a point of comparison, obviously the pandemic threw things off recently, but even pre-pandemic, heading into the 2020 season, longest streak at that point was 4 by Verlander. DeGrom, Cole, and Greinke had 3, so a decade away before the pandemic to catching up to what Buehrle was able to do for the pitchers pacing the league in that category. Now, how about consistency? You see 2001 to 2014, what his season averages were. What did he do in his last season? Well, when you signed Mark Buehrle, you got Mark Buehrle. A 3.81 ERA throughout his career. What did he do in his last year before hanging it up? 3.81 ERA. But, guys, here's the rub. I just don't think he was elite enough. This is how he finished the seasons in these categories. 5 times in the top 5 in top 10 in his league, and wins only twice in the top 5. And you see the rest of the corresponding numbers there. Just 3 seasons in the top 10 in his league in earned run average. And Maddie, I know you like this exercise, and I think it speaks to where we all probably come down on Buehrle. Great career. Not a Hall of Fame career. Just 2 of the 10 comparisons, courtesy of Baseball Reference, made it into Cooperstown. I do think, guys, he's a great example of why it's good to have these guys on the ballot for more than just 1 year, because I certainly appreciate Mark Buehrle more now than I did 2 or 3 years ago, just hearing these cases being made for him for the Hall of Fame. But I feel like we're probably all going to come down on a no for Mark Buehrle.
You know, is it 10% the vote that you need to maintain to stay on the ballot?
It's
5%. So I'm glad that he'll stay on the ballot, at least based on the tracking. We're not sure if that's the actual number that it'll land on. Yeah, Buehrle's interesting for me too, Keith. I mean, you know, you hear the term black ink a lot, right? And how many years in how many categories a player led a league in strikeouts or walks or whatever category we're talking about. There is some black ink on the Baseball Reference page of Mark Buehrle. 16 years in the big leagues, twice back-to-back years led the league in innings pitched. Twice led the league in games started. There were a handful of years where he led the league in hits allowed, but that's only a function of having pitched so many innings. A no-hitter and a perfect game. By the way, the first no-hitter, that was the one where he surrendered the walk to Sammy Sosa and then picked him off, I think, as soon as Sammy got on first base. Anecdotally, man, you could really make a pretty decent case for Mark Buehrle. I'm not sure voters will see him as a Hall of Famer, however.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's in the Hall of the very, very good, and he'd definitely be in the Hall of the dependability. I was looking at the numbers, and kind of like he said, 16 years, 15 full seasons. All 15 years, at least 30 starts. I mean, that's incredible. And the 200 innings, I know we showed 14. His last year, he throws 198 and 2/3. So he's there. So what I love about him, he'd have no problem with a pitch clock. I mean, he was the quickest worker. I know he said whatever the catcher threw down, he wanted the thought process taken out. But how comforting is that, knowing whatever the catcher's going to put down, you have the confidence to make that pitch,
yeah.
You know, even if you're feeling something. So he was very, very good. I also agree he's going to fall a little bit short of, you know, reaching the Hall, but incredible career, and hey, getting 10% of the vote, that's pretty damn good.
I'll throw one more thing in, guys, before we get to JP. It's not obviously enough to sway his Hall of Fame case, but it is a nice silver lining. Best season of his career by far, a 3.12 ERA in 2005 when they obviously snapped a long title drought. So at his best when the team needed him to be at his best, and made a historic impact on the franchise that year, obviously.
Yeah, again, that's great anecdotal information. And we end these segments, as we always do, by giving an actual Hall of Fame voter the final salvo. JP, what do you think about Mark Buehrle?
Mark Buehrle is in for me. I have voted for him this year yet again. A huge fan of his candidacy. Like Keith said, to me, part of the honor of being on the ballot is remaining there. And so I have somewhat voted strategically to always support those who I believe, like Jimmy Rollins, Torrey Hunter, and Buehrle, who are maybe on the margin of that 5% support, who I really want to remain in the consciousness of the voters and potentially have a different historical hearing of their career. I think Mike talked about this. It was the consistency for me at a time in the game, when you go back from 2000 to present, where there were not a lot of guys who threw 200 innings every single year. Mark Buehrle did that. He was the hero of a World Series. He pitched a perfect game. He pitched a no-hitter. He started an all-star game. He won 4 Gold Gloves. We talk a lot about defense in the context of Scott Rowland. Buehrle was in many ways the preeminent defensive pitcher, following up Greg Maddux in Major League Baseball for certainly several years there. He had a very historically significant career, and it was more of the consistency than the dominance of a Pedro Martinez. But when I look at the chapter of baseball from 2000 till 2015, if I was going to write a summary of those 15 years, Mark Buehrle's name is mentioned multiple times. And that's why, for me, I am happy to vote for him yet again this year.
It is. We appreciate you disclosing your ballot there. In part, the transparency, it's always huge. And the only thing, there's only one thing, I should say, that JP likes to talk about more than the Hall of Fame. Do you have any idea? Is that even a question?
I mean, is that really a question?
No, it's not. It's not really a question because it's the World Baseball Classic. And when we come back, JP has news involving Team Japan that involves one of Major League Baseball's biggest stars. And it's not so cryptic, not tough to guess who we're talking about. That conversation is coming up next. I don't believe they're related. You tell me if I'm wrong. Is Rick Tomlin related to Josh Tomlin?
Damn. Sorry, Rick.
All right, let's
think of it. Good guy, though. Good guy.
Yeah, good guy. That's what we always have to do. We forget their names. Let's move on.
You're a pitching coach?
Your catcher from the '97 Norwich Navigators.
Oh, he did play in the big leagues.
He did.
It's going to be Tommy Wilson.
Yes, yeah. Got it. Tom Wilson, 2 for 3. Moving on. And another catcher, the backup catcher, if you will, who I
played in the big leagues?
Do not believe he played in the big leagues. We can confirm that.
Oh, God.
And I think the dude has probably Armenian based on the IAN at the last name.
Ian? IAN? This is not fair.
That's okay. It's hard. No. Give him the answer. Roll it.
No. Oh, no.
Grant Fithian.
Man, that's not fair. I think I played like 2 weeks with Grant.
Okay. All right.
He was jacked, though.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
You remember the name of the trainer?
Of course.
What? Okay.
You know what? The trainers are like the GMs in the minor leagues. They do everything. That's Greg Spratt.
You got it. Travel coordinator, trainer.
Psychologist.
Social director.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we got one more. The third baseman on the '97 Navigators was.
That looks like it's either Derek Ducart or. Okay.
You got it.
Yeah. Well, the third baseman's I'm going to know because those are the guys I. What was that Leiter who said I didn't want him to do well? I got to believe that goes on a lot in the minor league.
Yeah, because he was a third baseman too, right?
Yeah. How do you hope he does? 0 for 4 with 3 errors. That's what I hope.
Did pretty good there, man. We gave you some tough ones with the pitching coach and a trainer in there. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Let's take a break because when we come back, also not easy is the Hall of Fame conversation around players who were